Europe has one of the most advanced and well-developed consumer protection legislation in the world. We knew it with the adoption of DSA, DMA, General Product Safety Regulation, and the modernization of the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive. We have aimed to take consumer protection from analogic to digital. Yet the conservative estimates quantify the value of the consumer detriment arising from problems experienced in the digital environment at almost 8 billion euros every year. While the economic cost is easier to quantify, we cannot say the same about the mental health cost, especially in young people. A year ago, Amnesty International published the results of an investigation finding that a 13-year-old child interacting with mental health content on TikTok would get more than half of the For You recommendations relating to the mental health struggles within 20 minutes of app use. Within 1 hour, the app was recommending videos normalizing or encouraging even suicide. These problems have more than one face and they need to be addressed urgently. At the same time, we need to make sure we don't overcomplicate matters adopting new rules before we see how the existing rules are fully implemented. In the USA, they lack legislation, but enforce the bits they have. In Europe, we have the legislation, but the lack of enforcement. What is more, member states' authorities often have different interpretation of EU legislation, fail to coordinate not only with other national counterparts, but also within the member states itself, opening the way to forum shopping and making us vulnerable to malicious actors. Their approach is to break the law and move fast, knowing that the cost of potential fines would be balanced by the gains they make in the meantime. We need to show everyone that European Union is serious about enforcement, but sometimes we lack the means for it. And here I refer to the limitation of the CPC network. So my question for you are, what are the main challenges that you are facing in the implementation? When we speak about simplification and reduction of requirements, would updating the blacklist in the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive be enough for addressing the gaps we have in our legislation on combating dark patterns? What can the Commission do more to help reduce the fragmentation in implementation and enforcement across the member states? Thank you.
On the lack of enforcement, you were quoting indeed that there are many implementation issues and that could be gaps and that we have to help reduce fragmentation. I fully agree with you. I mean, we see that there are still fragmentation in the member states. As you know, our top priority is to make sure that as guardian of the treaties, we make sure that all our acquis is fully implemented in all the member states. And when it's not the case, we want to be strong and come up with specific enforcement actions. And that's why we came, for example, last week on the action of the CPC actions against Apple. 2 weeks ago, it was with Temu, and we are planning other actions. So I agree with you, we need really to focus and to have a strong enforcement policy and then see how we can, make the rules being clearer. Indeed, on the dark patterns, it could be by adding, specific types of definitions of dark patterns in the list of the UCPD so that all the national enforcement authorities can have the same understanding of what needs to be enforced or not. But our role here goes even larger because we want still, we know with this understanding of the situation to see if there are still gaps and what we will need to do. So that will be typically what we will do next year.